Welcome to Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, brought to you by the experts at Merryfield Garden Center. Join us as we discover beautiful plants, new trends, and exciting ideas for your landscape. So let's get growing together. Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, bringing out the best in your garden.
Good morning, everybody. We're so glad you could join us today here on Merryfield's Gardening Advisor. I'm your host, Debbie Warhurst-Kapp, along with gardening expert David Yost. Good morning.
Good morning, Debbie. Haven't seen much of you this week. It's good to be here with you this morning.
It is. Good to be here. Good to be here. Good to be here with all of you. Well, once the holiday decorations have come down, a lot of times the house seems a little bare, blah.
It
plain.
does, but I know, I can tell you, I'm ready for a change.
Yes.
And I think a lot of other people are, and so that's what we're really talking about today, where those decorations down, as Debbie was saying, you might be feeling a little blah. We're trying to encourage you to bring some tropical plants indoors to give you that lift that's there. Nothing feels better. I've been wandering around the greenhouses, and then they're chock full now with all these beautiful foliage plants, flowering plants. Like, okay, the holidays are over. This feels great. I know it's the middle of winter, so you can still get that gardening energy. Take care of that, with doing the indoor plants as well as it just, makes you feel great. And we all know it's good for your health as well, cleaning the air and improving air quality. So it's all good reasons to have plants in your home.
And it's always so fun when those big tractor trailer loads come of those trucks. I mean, of those plants. It's like, okay. Beauty.
Oh yeah, because I think, like I said, but then again, at the garden center, we start our Christmas season early, so it's around for a long time.
Yeah,
I'm ready for the change.
Exactly. Well, before we get going with today's show, lots of things going on at Merryfield Garden Center today. Most exciting is today kicks off our winter and spring free gardening seminars at all 3 locations, and we have a fantastic lineup this winter and spring, and you had a lot to do with that. You lined us up some great people.
Yeah, of course, we've been doing this for years and years, and they're always fantastic. Those of you who've been to the classes know how much fun they are and how informative they can be, and it's really just a great time. But yes, I ended up basically putting together most of the classes this year, and so I reached out to a lot of friends in the industry, a lot of guests, because it's trying to find something to make it a little different, a little new. Plus, a lot of very knowledgeable, enthusiastic people in our own staff. I've found some new people have come in over the years. So even if you've been coming to seminars for years, look over the schedule, because you're going to see a lot of names and faces and topics that have never been available before. Always trying to keep it interesting there. And again, they're all free. They're all fantastic.
They really are. Well, let's see what we've got going on today. At our Merryfield location, Karen Rexroad, who you've seen on the show many times, is going to be talking about winter interest. So she's going to see how evergreens, berries, bark, and branching structure reveal themselves this time of year. Because, there's beauty in the winter landscape as well. And so that's at 10 a.m. at the Merryfield location. That is actually at the Merryfield Community Hall, which is right next door to our Merryfield location, 8104 Lee Highway. And at our Fair Oaks location, Delicious Landscapes. Michael Fay, who also has been on the show several times, he is going to be talking about making your garden beautiful and tasty with edible plants. And he's the perfect one, because he's the daring one. He likes to try different things.
Yeah, a lot of what he's sharing there is through his own firsthand knowledge of both with growing and experimenting and foraging. So he's got a lot of good stories to share there.
Absolutely. That's at 10 a.m. at our Fair Oaks location, which is 12101 Lee Highway in Fairfax. At our Gainesville location today, Paul Knight is going to be talking about houseplants. So you can, we'll give you a teaser today on houseplants, and then you can take your questions and go out to the seminar at 10 a.m. at Gainesville and see what he's got in his presentation, see the plants, ask questions. It's a great tie-in.
Yeah, and I've got a few pictures in our presentation today from the greenhouse at Gainesville, but again, that's just nice. I can't remember, so it's close to an acre they have under glass. So they've just got so much room and so many wonderful plants to look at out there.
Yeah. So that's what's happening today. Next week, and the seminars will continue for the next couple of months at all 3 locations every Saturday. But next week we'll have flowers for your home, landscape renovations, and the art of pruning. So if you're not on our mailing list and did not get the seminar schedule booklet, you can stop in our stores, any of our stores, and pick one up. It's got some great gardening tips. It's got great information about the stores, and of course the entire schedule. So pick that up. You can also go online at merryfieldgardencenter.com and see all the topics and schedules. Let's see what else we have. After Christmas sale is still going on. Everything is now 60% off. But I know we're going to be putting things away soon, so I'd get in pretty quickly to take advantage of those.
Oh yeah,
specials.
we've already started consolidating and having to straighten things up, get ready for spring. So like Debbie's saying, get in there right now, 60% off. So yeah, get them ahead of time, and you'll be all set for next year.
Exactly. And while you're in the store, whether it's the seminar or at the checking out the after Christmas sale, if you're at the Fair Oaks location, my dad, Bob Warhurst, is going to be signing his book, The American Dream. So you can pick that up at any of our stores. But he will be book signing today from 10:30 to 12 at Fair Oaks, and tomorrow at Gainesville, also at 10:30 to 12. So it's a great book. So many people have read this and are talking about, telling us what a great book it is. It's just so heartwarming for me to hear these great things. So, and later in the show, we will be taking your phone calls. So let's get on with the show.
So we got a pretty full agenda
That's
planned
right,
for
we
you.
do.
Like I said, we're talking about tropical plants and growing them indoors today, and I like to emphasize that growing plants in your home, it's just very much like growing plants out in the garden. You have the same basic requirements, where plants, they need sunlight, they need air, they water, nutrients, So the thing is, in your home, you have to provide all these elements and conditions for them to grow. And one of the things I always try to encourage people is to start out with the easy stuff. And when I say easy, plants that you're looking at, like here, this is the Sansevieria or the snake plant, showing you just a small sense of all the varieties that are available to you. But what I call easy care plants, these are plants that are very, very adaptable, very resilient. So if whether you've got bright light or low light, you can even neglect watering on. These are plants that will tolerate that kind of neglect, less than ideal conditions, and can still grow for you. So if you're new, things like the Sansevieria is very good, or the snake plant, same thing. Pothos. Now this, most of the time you see this growing as a trailing vine, growing as a hanging basket, but it can be as a potted plant on the table also. This is one that for office environments, for example, that are growing under really horrendous conditions. Because again, no plants are adapted to growing inside.
Right.
It's just these are plants that will tolerate that condition. So the pothos is one of the foolproof ones, and just showing you a couple of the colors that are available there. Very similar to philodendron, which also has this kind of trailing growth habit. And you can see varieties called Brazil there that's got the variegation, or the I think the other one they call lemon lime or something that's got the yellow leaves on it. They're solid green. There's some that are marbled with white, some that's sort of a red tinge. But these are some of the easy things that you can grow when you don't have ideal conditions, or the Chinese evergreen. So these are ones that they all of them naturally grow in tropical rainforests, but they grow in the understory of the canopy where they get light that's filtered through there, so they tolerate lower light levels. They tolerate if you miss a watering or two.
Right.
And then you can sort of water them, give them a little bit of light, and perk them back up. So those are just a couple of the real easy ones to grow. And like I said, as we go through the program, I'm just going to try to give an idea of what's available to you.
Great. So that's just a starter. So we've got more when we come back. Stay tuned. Bright colors of indoor plants. It's a perfect addition to your home this time of year. So if you're needing to spruce up a little bit, this is the time to do it.
Exactly. Like I said, the decorations are down, the cold weather's got you trapped inside, so why not make it
Enjoy
your own little tropical paradise?
Right. That's right.
Absolutely. So we were just talking a little bit, introducing the today, about essentially just like outside, you have to match the right plant, right place, and match it to the environment. We're going to do that same concept in our homes. So I think really whenever you come into the garden center and we start talking to you about plants for your home, it's the same thing just like when you're gardening outside. We're starting asking, well, how much sun do you get? How much shade do you get? How big do you want the plants to be? So you're applying these same concepts to your home, and it's important that you take careful observation of the lighting conditions that you have. And I emphasize this, and I make such a big deal about lighting because I think that's really the #1 limiting factor that we have as far as gardening inside, because we have the air, we can provide the water, we can provide the nutrients, but it's providing that sunlight that's so critical.
Right.
So what we're doing is most of the time we're selecting plants that are adaptable, that will tolerate low light conditions. All plants need sunlight to grow. So the more sunlight you have, the broader the range of choices you have. And just like we see in that previous picture, you might right up close to the window, it's just a light sheer curtain, might have very bright light, but then as you move further back from that, the light diminishes, and it actually diminishes at an exponential rate as you move back from the window. So this is really the critical thing in selecting lights. Now the other positive thing we can say about that is you can change the environment. You can add lights to enhance the lighting is there if that's your limiting condition that's there. And this is just a few things, a few examples I brought in. There's a lot of different lighting systems that are available to you. Something like this day spot, as you can see, that's just an individual spotlight that's on there. You can buy grow lights and just plug them into existing lamp fixtures that you have. Now, one of the things you're going to find is just like all the national lighting standards have changed, to improve the energy efficiency. So this has happened in plant lights as well. We now have gone to the compact fluorescent, the LED lights. So you end up reading the label a little bit differently. There's actually more information on the label, so I think this is all a very positive thing. But when you look at the details on here now, they tell you in terms of lumens how bright the light is, watts, the energy it uses. They even give you estimated costs to run during the day.
Wow.
So what will happen is the LED lights are really the highest efficiency ones. Here I'm putting the LED in there. That's actually where you're going to get, that's your most efficient light, uses the least amount of energy, but they're more expensive to buy up front. So a lot of people are doing these compact fluorescents. And like I said, we've got a full range, whether you're just looking for a replacement bulb or whole lighting system. The other thing, I'll say what's different about a plant light is that they give the full spectrum that's in there. Plants use all the way from the ultraviolet through the infrared range of the light spectrum. So it is important for your plants that they do offer that full range, and it's even more important if we start talking about flowering plants.
Gotcha.
So it's not just your regular old light bulb. So if you're not blessed with good natural light, then hey, supplement, build that on, set it on a timer, leave it on there 12, 14 hours a day.
That's a great idea, set it on a timer.
Then you can grow almost anything. So let's go back to the plants.
Okay.
You kind of observe that and just try to look at a few examples of things that are out there. Dracaena, this is a great group of plants. It makes up a large collection in our greenhouse because again, they're very easy to grow, a lot of varieties that are out there. Plus, a lot of times from a design perspective, you're looking for that kind of tall, upright accent, a little bit of that sort of tree type of look in here. And so these are some of the best ones to grow. And we'll just go on and take a look at a couple more of them. See our next picture there. One of the things I wanted to emphasize in here is back to the lighting situation. Anytime you get a plant that has variegation, that has these nice colors in the foliage, they're going to need a brighter light condition. So the Dracaena that's in the background, that's the solid green, can go into what we call low light environment. That doesn't necessarily need any direct sun. It would grow even if it had a bright but indirect light type of condition. As you move into the variegation, like you see in that one, a lot of times called a corn plant up front, because it has that variegation, the plant's less efficient in its use of the light, and at that point I'm going to call sort of a medium light condition. Again, very bright, indirect light that you could easily sit there and read newspaper in, would be that type of environment. Now if you have what I'm calling bright, almost sunny conditions where you can get maybe a little bit of direct sun, then like this tricolored Dracaena that you're seeing coming up here, you'll notice in this one, it actually is called a tricolor because it has 3 different colors in there. But to keep that bright color in there, you really need to get bright light on there.
Absolutely.
Just a couple more examples to emphasize this. I've got a picture of what's called the cast iron plant. It gets that name because it will literally grow even in with the most negligence you could possibly imagine. I guess in the old days in England, even when they were burning wood stoves and everything, and they would be emitting gases in the old gas lamps that were toxic to a lot of plants, this plant would survive.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Didn't know that. Little trivia
where
there.
Where its little name came from, exactly, because I guess they had the cast iron stoves, and this thing would survive. So again, that's one that's really great for tough conditions, doesn't need much water. Now, palms, everybody loves this kind of texture of a palm, the tropical feel of a palm. They like the height and light airy growth. They're not always the easiest plants to me to grow inside. This is one that is going to require a little more attention, meaning a little brighter light, a little more attention to the watering, keeping it uniformly moist. Lower humidity starts to cause a little bit of browning on. You can grow it, and a lot of people do, but I'm just telling you, you're making a little greater commitment to its care. This particular one was called a bamboo palm because it's tolerant of a little bit lower light conditions. So again, we've got this specialist can kind of help match that right plant for the right environment. And then crotons, again, if you want to get color, and that's what we're all after, if you start adding color, you're going to have some light. This is one that really needs a little direct sun. If you don't have it and you want the color, then you get one of the plant lights and put that spotlight right on it.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to send David into the greenhouse, literally.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. We're talking about indoor plants, indoor gardening right now. And I tell you, there's no better time than right now to come into greenhouses and check it out. One is for yourself, so you can go in there and enjoy a little tropical getaway. But the other is our greenhouses are about as stocked full right now as you'll ever see them, because all the beautiful plants from Florida have come up and all the great winter blooming flowers. There's just so much to see and enjoy there. So we've been talking a little bit kind of in general about growing tropical plants, some of the different foliage plants that you can have. What I'm going to focus on for the next few minutes is what I call specialty plants, because when you come in, it's not just the Dracaenas and the palms and all those beautiful foliage plants you have, but specialty areas like cactus and succulents, where we have just a huge selection that's out there. And this can be a lot of fun too. Now again, primarily we're talking about very bright light conditions, so that's something you have to be able to provide. But the nice thing here is, of course, we all know, is you can really kind of be a little forgetful or neglectful even on the watering. So I want to say, first of all, difference between cactus and succulents. We group them together because they both kind of grow in that semi-dry condition. But let's take a look. I think my next picture, if I remember, is a close-up of a cactus. Right. Cactus actually have spines. When you look at them, what they've done is they've adapted and modified for desert conditions, very hot, dry environments for the most part. So what's happened, their leaves, they've lost all their foliage or their leaves, because that's where most of the transpiration takes place, the water and moisture loss that's there. But what they've adapted is their stems have become swollen, and so the photosynthesis and then occurs there, and also they absorb and retain moisture in the stems, so you get these very unusual shapes. You can see the upright ones, the bulbous ones, and then their leaves and all the stipules and parts there, have adapted and modified over the eons to where they are spines. So cactus actually have spines. They got this thick, fleshy stem, holds moisture in there, and they have spines, and for the most part, they're adapted to desert conditions. So these are ones that literally, you may only water about once every 6, 8, 10 weeks, something like that. So they're a good plant if you're not very reliable on watering, provide you a lot of interest, but they are ones that you want really bright, almost really sunny conditions for. So that's cactus. Succulents are very similar, other than you'll notice they don't have the spines. Now these are hens and chicks or sempervirens. They're so much fun because you can see the variety that's in there. And so these are popular for growing out in the garden, growing containers. They make nice house plants also. And these are tropical species that may not work for you outdoors. So the thing with succulents, I'm going to say, is they do like dry conditions, but not quite to the extreme that a cactus does. With succulents, I don't want them to ever 100% totally dry out like you might experience the cactus. So you can let them dry, but once you reach that point of dryness, make sure you water them again. Again, lots of different choices. These are kind of low ground cover spreading types. The jade plant is probably one of the most popular ones that's out there because you can see how it grows into this sort of miniature tree form. You can take this jade plant and even adapt them, take it a step further, and they're great to grow as bonsai, which leads me into my sort of next section on specialty plants. So let's move forward to the next one. Oops, I forgot. There are succulents in here. I just love this little frog so much. I let you get a good look. Isn't she cute? But look at that nice succulent garden behind it. So that's how she got her picture in there. And that's actually a little jade plant, believe it or not, that's growing inside that pot, or if you can overlook the frog. It's just a modification where the leaves have become rounded in there. So that's jade plant. I'm talking about succulents and how versatile they are. Here's one that's been trained into a bonsai form, where they've just gone in with specialized pruning techniques and putting this low profile pot, have developed it into a miniature tree. And there's variegated ones and stuff. So again, there's so much fun you can have with these different plants. So as I was saying, we've got specialty plants, the cactus, the succulents. We also offer a selection of bonsai for growing indoors. Now, a lot of you know about growing bonsai outside, where you take plants like maples and hollies and azaleas and so on and train them into miniature trees. You can do that same technique inside your house. Now, this is a type of ficus that you're looking at. A lot of us know ficus as a tree that we grow inside the house as a tropical tree. This is one that's they've just trained into the bonsai form. Now, I feel like this is something I always caution people on a little bit. Bonsai, because they're grown in these little low-profile flat pots, you have to pay a lot of attention to this. This is a specialty hobbyist part of gardening. You need to be able to check on these really every day or two, because the watering on these, they can dry out literally within 1 or 2 days because they're that low-profile pot. But we can't go the other extreme where they're overwatered and we kill them. So they're easy to grow, but they require a lot of constant attention. This is not a plant that you can go away on vacation for 2 weeks and think you're going to come back and find it looking beautiful and healthy. So that's the wondrous thing about bonsai. It requires that kind of commitment so you can enjoy it, but it's not something that you take on if you just want to put it on the shelf and forget about. What I'm calling epiphytes is a group of plants. Not all plants grow down in the ground. A lot of them have adapted for growing up in the cracks and crevices of trees, for growing on rocks. So the bromeliads, which are so fantastic, are representative of this group of plants, where they grow up in those canopies. So these are ones that do quite well if you can ignore them. They don't require the constant watering. They actually form a little bit of a vase, you might say, a rosette in those leaves, and contain moisture that's in there. Closely related, another type of bromeliad are the tillandsias, or what we call air plants. Now these, you can see, they're just, this is a nice way they're displayed, where they've been mounted onto a piece of driftwood that's in there. What I would do with this is you can place these almost anywhere in the home, but they have scales on their foliage and absorb that moisture directly through the atmosphere. And a lot of times, because it's so dry in our homes, that could be an issue. So these, you just mist them frequently. You go by there and you constantly, every time you walk by, you mist it and spritz it down to keep them going. Otherwise, very easy to grow. We also have edible plants. We're talking about herbs. So if you like just having culinary herbs to grow in your window, that's something you can do. We also have miniature fruit trees, things like lemon and lime, or in this case, the kumquats. Now, if you're growing citrus plants, you gotta have very bright, sunny sunroom conditions, and you also have to be ready to do the hand pollination because somebody's got to transfer the pollen out there. But this is a little miniature kumquat, and again, if you're willing to devote the attention to it and you have the good, bright, sunny conditions, you can even have food growing in your home. So endless selections. Again, you got to come in to see us and talk to us, and we can give you all the details in this. Because right now I'm being told I'm overdue. I got to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we've got more to show you from our tropical greenhouses.
So everyone likes to have flowers in their home, at least part of the time. So with houseplants, with flowering houseplants, you can do that anytime, and you're not going to have to get rid of them after the cut flowers have faded. They're there for you. So we had an opportunity to go out in our greenhouse. Actually, we did this last year, so it was so good we're going to rerun it. Just some great ideas of flowering plants in the greenhouse with David.
Nice to have some color in the home, but I think it's especially appreciated in the winter months when there's really not much color in our gardens and not much going on outside, and it's cold, dark, and dreary. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 different plants today that add beautiful color during the winter months. We'll talk a little bit about the begonias, the cyclamen, and the primrose. All 3 of these plants flourish during the cool months of winter. Their ideal growing environment is about 55 to 65 degrees. All 3 of these plants want to be kept sort of consistently, uniformly moist, avoiding extremes of either wet or dry. And all 3 of these will give you week after week of color if you give them proper care. So we'll begin talking a little bit more detail about the begonias. This is what's called a Rieger begonia or Hymenalis begonia. It's been cultivated specifically for the large showy blooms, the compact size, and extended bloom season. In addition to keeping the temperatures cool, we have to keep an eye on that moisture to avoid the extremes, and I expect to get anywhere from 4, 6, maybe even 8 weeks of color out of these begonias. It's also a plant that can serve you well in the garden. So after all risk of frost is passed, you can move this outdoors into a shade garden is where it does best. And you can put them in containers, you can plant them in the ground, and that will extend the utility of the plant and extend your enjoyment of it well through into the garden season. There's many colors to choose from. We're showing mostly whites and pinks here, but there's also reds and oranges and yellows, so you pick whatever fits your decor. Now, the cyclamen. This is a plant that many of you know about. It's a gorgeous plant through the winter months also. I've had these bloom for me in my home for 2, 3 months at a time. I think the real key to success, in addition to the cool temperatures, is the watering. This grows from a corm. You think of a bulb-like structure at the base, and if it's too wet, that corm rots, and if it's too dry, the plant wilts and stops flowering. The best way to avoid these extremes is to water it from the bottom. So I'll take this and I'll set this pot in a basin and allow that moisture to soak up through the bottom of the pot until it's thoroughly moistened, then allow excess water to drain away, and then set it out in my living room or dining room where I can enjoy it. But if you do that to avoid these extremes of moisture, you can get week after week of color. And these plants, they're so gorgeous. If it didn't even bloom, if you're just growing it for the beautiful pattern foliage on there, it'd be worth having. This happens to be a miniature variety that I'm showing. There's ones that have ruffled petals and larger blooms, many different ones to choose from. And then finally, I wanted to bring up the begonia. Begonias and cyclamen at one time were actually put into the same plant family, but recently botanists separated them out and put the begonias into their, put the primrose into their own subfamily or different family altogether. This is another plant that loves those cool temperatures, the uniform moisture. Indoors, I really only expect to get 3 to 4 weeks of bloom out of it. They don't last quite as long inside, but it's so cheerful, and again, so many colors to choose from, you can't resist it. This is also another plant that once we get past that risk of frost, or even during the cool spring months, you can take it outside and add it to your garden and get even more enjoyment out of it there. These are just a few of the many colors that we have for wintertime. Love the opportunity to show you more, and so let's see what else we can find.
So nice to be able to be out in the greenhouse with all that beautiful color.
Yeah, and you wouldn't realize how many things are blooming in the wintertime, and it's just loaded up with flowers. So I brought a couple pictures along just to reinforce that. Right now, you know, we've got an amazing selection of African violets that are in there. And a lot of people love African violets, and there's people that collect them because there's so many of them. And part of that is African violets are one of the few plants that will continually bloom for you 12 months out of the year.
Yes, they're great. I love them on my windowsill, on my kitchen window.
A lot of the others we were talking about, you know, like the cyclamen, and so, you know, that's a, for example, that's a cool season plant. They bloom in the wintertime. This can give you a lot of color. And in the background, the taller one, it's a close relative of the African violet. It's called Streptocarpella, but it receives the same kind of care. It's just got a larger leaf and a little taller flower on there. But again, we've got so many of them in there, all different colors. And I tried to put the little miniature in there as well to show you. Now, Spathiphyllum, or the peace lily, is, again, it's one of the few tropical plants that will bloom for you indoors pretty reliably. The thing with anything that's in the arum family, or these peace lilies particularly I'm talking about, is they really need to be kept consistently moist. This is not a plant that's, if it dries out, it'll tell you, it will fall over and look, you know, like it's in severe pain. You can soak it in water and it will perk up again, but if you don't provide ideal conditions, then you're not going to get the flowering out of it. But that's one that can also add some blooms for you. Closely related to the anthurium that you can see there, the similarity in the bloom types. So their care and maintenance is the same, but they're ones that will tolerate a little bit lower light, give you nice foliage, and give you pretty consistent blooming there. And then I put a couple pictures of orchids in here. We're going to save this topic really for another day because there's so many orchids. That's a whole story in and of itself. But I wanted to put them in there because orchids, really, most of them hit their peak bloom in the winter time. So this kind of January, February, March is a great time to be bringing orchids into your home because they give you such long-lasting blooms, such pretty colors, and like I said, you know, there's just so many to choose from there.
They're perfect for Valentine's Day too. Great Valentine's presents.
So we'll probably talk about them in more detail than that as we get closer to that time.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to take your phone calls. So give us a call, 703-387-1046, and we will be right back. Okay, we're back, and we're taking your phone calls during the rest of the show. So if you have any questions, give us a call, 703-387-1046. And David, our first caller is Gretchen, who's calling from Forestville. Hi, Gretchen. How are you this morning?
Good morning. How are you? Happy New Year.
Great. Thanks,
Good morning.
same to you.
Doing just great.
Good. My question, I have a corn plant. It was given to me by a dear friend who's passed, but I cut it in half because it was just too tall to bring in my home. So I cut it in half, I rooted it, and they're growing prolifically, the two pieces, but one of them is blooming.
Oh, isn't that fun?
So, I mean, should I cut it off or just cut the bloom off or just let it go? I've never fed these plants.
Yeah, that's really up to you. I mean, the fact that it's flowering tells me that you're doing everything right and you have a good environment, because a lot of people are familiar with the corn plant, but very rarely do you see it bloom. That only happens when it's really in prime health and prime conditions. Now, to me, the flower is not pretty or attractive, but I think it's interesting. So it really doesn't influence the plant's health one way or the other. If you're enjoying the flower and saying, hey, isn't this kind of cool, then just leave it on there. Eventually, like other blossoms, it will start to fade and it will get a little ratty looking, and then you just deadhead and cut it off. Or if you feel like it's kind of you know, detracting from the plant, then you can go ahead and cut it off now. So it really doesn't matter the plant, but I would tell you it's an unusual event. You don't get to see that happen very often.
Oh, okay.
So even though it's not attractive, I think it's interesting. I would leave it on there just for the interest that's there, but it's really up to you, and it doesn't matter to the plant. And whatever you're doing, just keep doing it as far as you care for the plant, because the fact that it's blooming tells me it's in great condition.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for giving us a call.
All right, bye-bye.
Have a great day. Okay, David, our next caller is Roy, who's calling from Lorton. Hi, Roy.
Hello.
Are you there?
I'm here.
There we go. How
can
are
we
you
help
today?
Good. How are you?
Great, thanks. What's your question?
Our question is, we have a peace lily who's got brown edges. It's about a 3-year-old peace lily, consistently blooms, got plenty of light, grows every year, but it's browning on the edges.
There's a couple things come to mind. One is, are you just using regular tap water?
Yes.
That's on there. Yeah. Sometimes, now there are plants that are sensitive to the fluoride that's in our tap water, and that can cause that marginal scorch that's on there. And peace lily will see that happen. So ideally, you would sort of fill up that watering can, let it sit for a day or two, just let the fluoride volatilize out of there, and then use that for your watering. The other possibility that can happen is if it's been in that same container for 3 years, it might be time to consider repotting it, just kind of taking it out of there, breaking away, sort of lightly flaking off some of the old soil, putting fresh soil in there, maybe even bumping it up to a larger size pot, because over time the salts that are in the water that we use, salts that are in any fertilizers, can start to accumulate in that soil, and that can also cause a little marginal scorch in there. So it's really not a disease or pest problem. I think it probably has more to do with the watering practices.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for giving us a call.
Have a great day. Okay, do we have another caller? Carolyn from Oxon Hill. Hi, Carolyn.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Thanks.
So glad you could call.
Yes. What I'm trying to do is get rid of these nets that's in my plants. I've tried everything. I've tried vinegar, putting it around on the soil. I even tried putting a layer of sand around my plant, and it just doesn't work. I don't know what to do.
When you put the sand on there, let me ask, how thick or how deep of a layer did you put in there?
About a quarter of an inch.
Okay. Because a lot of times that sand barrier does work, but normally it needs to be more like 3/4 of an inch thick. So, I mean, you could give that a try. The other is, if you get to, and it sounds like you might be there, where you're just like fed up and just want this problem to go away, there's an insecticide that we sell under the name of 8, just like the number 8, EIGHT. The active ingredient in there is called permethrin. But that can be mixed up as a soil drench. Basically, you have to follow the label directions. It's only, I think it's a little bit like 2 ounces, goes to 3 gallons of water. So it's a weak dilution, but you put that insecticide, that 8, into a watering can on a nice day, take the plants outside, drench that through the soil, and that actually kills the larvae that are developing the soil. Now, these are fungus gnats. They're not really harmful. They're not pests, but they're a nuisance, because then they buzz around the lights in your house and, drop into your dinner plate and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So either just, try more sand that's in there, thicken that up to about 3/4 inch layer. If that doesn't work and you just really want the problem to go away, then come in and see us and ask for a little bottle of 8 concentrate.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next caller is Diane, who's calling from Montgomery Village. Are you there, Diane? Diane?
Good morning, Diane.
I think we may have a little difficulty. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll try to get Diane back on the line. Stay tuned. Hopefully Diane is on the line. Are you there, Diane?
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks so
good
much for
morning.
holding.
Yes, thank you. My question is, I have a very large umbrella tree, and I'm not quite sure how to prune it, so I was just wondering if it would tolerate an inaccurate pruning.
Yeah. It will tolerate it, but you know, when you say inaccurate pruning, of course, you know.
What exactly do you mean?
There's again, there's no rules on this. This is the kind of fun thing I say about gardening. You kind of get to express a lot of your own tastes and preferences in there. You can prune it. I would say the ideal best time to prune that would probably be waiting until around March or something. Or let me ask, do you move the plant outdoors in the summertime, or do you keep it inside year-round?
No, I keep it inside.
Okay, then the timing is not quite as critical. We can go ahead and prune that anytime. You can prune that this weekend if you want. I was thinking a lot of times, large plants like that, people move them out to the deck or patio. But it's really up to you. You could literally, if you just want to shape that almost like keep it like into a dense rounded form, you could literally just go around the top and almost shear it into whatever shape or size you want. What I like to do with them is not really even a true bonsai, but I like to go in there and sort of try to shape it and do a little bit of thinning and develop more of a tree form look to it and follow techniques like you would actually use on a tree. So this is really up to you. The plant responds well to pruning. You can cut it back to any shape you want, any size you want. Even if you cut back into bare wood, it sprouts back out, so it's very resilient. Those cuttings that you take off of there are pretty easy to root also. So if you trim it back and you take those new tip cuttings, you can stick them into some potting mix and start new plants if you decide you want to do that. So,
oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it will tolerate your inaccurate pruning. Just go for it. You decide what you want the plant to look like. If you want to keep it compact and dense, just give it a haircut and root those tips. If you want to develop tree form, then you kind of use your artistic eye and go in there and do a little nip and tuck, as I say, and just selectively thin it.
Wonderful. Now, would the Schefflera be the same way? Or no, I'm sorry, ficus. Would it be as tolerable, or is that a little bit more typical?
It is. One thing that happens with the ficus, of course, is they have this white latex-like sap that drips out of them. So it can even be so much that it actually causes a little bit of a mess on the floor or something. So just be prepared for that and know that sap, that can be irritating if it gets in your eyes or something. So with the ficus, the plant responds to pruning. You can do whatever you want with it. Usually keep as more of a miniature tree, but just be a little cautious with that sap that exudes out of it.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much. I really enjoy your show.
Thank you.
Much.
And have fun with your pruning.
Okay, our next caller is Carol, who's calling from Springfield. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
How are you?
Cold.
Oh, yeah, I know
I
that
was
one.
feeding the birds this morning.
Oh, okay, great. What's your question today?
I have 2 hydrangeas, an ever-blooming, and then I bought a tall one with a very large, I think it's a mop head, white hydrangea forms. I never got to put them in the ground. We had a relative die, and I just, sort of left it. And now I'm wondering, should I put them in the garage? Should I wrap the containers?
Yeah, that's
question.
and I've had a few people call it, but had plants late in the season didn't get in the ground. The tall one with the big white flowers, that thing is like tough as nails and durable. And I know it's cold out now, but if you got a little break in the weather, I wouldn't even hesitate to go ahead and plant that outside.
Okay.
The one I'm a little more concerned about is what you're calling that ever-blooming one.
Right.
That's a little more sensitive to the cold temperatures.
Okay.
If you have an unheated garage or something like that to place it, that's fine. You can do that. If not, then you will probably want to heal that in, meaning either pile mulch around the base of it or wrap it with a bubble wrap or something, insulate and protect it. And most of the time, the damage on these plants will occur from drying out.
Okay.
So just don't allow it to go totally dry either. So you may even find once or twice this winter that you have to actually go in there and water it. And you'll want to do that on a day where temperatures are staying above 40 degrees.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay, I loved them. I mean, I have hydrangeas all over my yard, and I saw these two, and they just called to me, and I want to save them. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, that one of the
Thank
big
you.
white flowers, I'm thinking that's probably a PG hydrangea or Annabelle. Those are really tough, cold hardy, and I'm
I
not too
saw it
concerned.
in front of a post office in Springfield, and it was almost 5 feet tall. And then I was at, a discount store, and they were on sale. And I thought, I've never seen this one before, but it's blooming at the post office.
There
It
you
looked
go.
hardy.
Yeah, probably in late summer. That's probably a panicle hydrangea. Those are really easy, durable ones to grow.
Okay.
But the other one needs a little TLC.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your program. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, let's quickly get to Jane, who's calling from Fairfax. Hi, Jane. Do you have a quick question?
I sure do. This past Christmas, I bought some beautiful amaryllis bulbs from your Fair Oaks location. They were hardy and healthy and just stunning. My question is, can I save them for next year? And if so, how do I prepare them?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm assuming they finished blooming?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, so those flower stalks get cut off, but right now you should have these big, long green leaves growing.
Correct.
You just continue to give this, what I say, routine care. You know, you just, when it starts to get dry, you water it, you fertilize it once every month or so. It's just an all-purpose fertilizer. You'll basically keep that growing through the summer, just as any of the other house plants we've been talking about. When we get into late in the year, when we start talking around October time frame, that's when you'll probably put it into a rest period, put it in a cool, dark storage, and then you can pull it out of there after about 6 or 8 weeks and then get it to reinitiate flowering. So we're going to run out of time to give you too much details, but between now and through the rest of the summer, you can even put that in your deck or patio. Just kind of keep it watered, fertilize it occasionally. Doesn't really require any special care.
Oh,
come in and see us about getting the details and getting it to rebloom.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to come to our seminars today at all 3 locations. The only problem is you have to choose one, and that's the hard part.
And they're all great classes.
All great classes. Next week, we will be talking about, let's see, what will we be talking about? Keeping up with new trends. They were at the show this week, so it will be a great show. So have a wonderful week.